Hello again, squaddies. Welcome back to the Shattered Isles. As always, I am D, and today I'm bringing you the Fearless Slayers Bestiary entry for something a little new. Today, we're hunting a Riftstalker. Now, the Riftstalker is rather dangerous, in the sense that it is probably the most mobile beast in the game now. It's even more mobile than what I would say is its less fox cousin, the Embermane. In fact, we'll be able to see it in just a second. You saw it in the intro there, for maybe, but there it is. Now, this is not a true attack, but one of the things that you'll notice is that the Riftstalker thinks with portals. By that I mean, a lot of its attacks center around the idea that it can open up small portals of Umbral energy like that, and use them to teleport around the battlefield a lot. In fact, we're about to see its biggest attack. This I call the sunken place. It backs up into a portal on the ground like we just saw. It's never spawned me that close to the portals before. And it opens up between 2 and 5 portals. Why is my mouse is messing up, I think. Anyway, it opens up between 2 and 5 portals. And each of the portals can do one of 3 different things. They usually follow in a set pattern. But you can always tell what they're going to do. I always get hit by that first one. If the portal just pulses in the center a little bit like you just saw there, it fires off a shadow ball. Which is just it just does some damage and knocks you back a little. No real threat. Not a super threat. In fact, you're going to need to see it again. If the portal pulses kind of blue and a little bit more in the center, we're up to 3 portals now. That means we've done some damage. Like, not like that. You saw it kind of there. Then it fires off a shadowy copy of the Riftstalker that does damage. You can't really fight it, but they disappear really quickly. If the center of the portal pulses pink, you actually kind of saw it there for a minute. That's the Riftstalker itself coming out. Now, if you can interrupt, usually by hitting the head of the Riftstalker while you're in the sunken place, then you can usually knock it out of it really quickly. Otherwise, it'll go for usually about 2 rounds. And when I say 2 rounds, I mean 2 times where the Riftstalker itself will actually appear. What you just saw there is the shadow slash, or the portal slash, as I like to call it, where it takes a short hop forward into a portal and comes out of another one near a Slayer. Oh, cool! We already severed the tail. Now this is the Enrage. It doesn't really get an aura, it just shows the Enrage effect, charges forward into a portal, and then it does that really rapid up and down thing to build up momentum, then it'll build up a portal and fly out of it in its only Enrage attack, which I like to call the Shadow Saw, or the Portal Saw, I'm sorry. I don't remember what I call things. Wow, it's already up to 4 portals, we're doing well. This is actually a common tactic you'll see in this. People will put down a healing pylon or an ironhide pylon to help deal with the incoming damage, because we're actually doing really well against this, so I might have to talk about some other things. But this is the Shadow Dive. It kind of burrows into the ground, and then it opens up the portal at underneath the Slayer. It comes bursting out of it, and then usually it'll dive back into the ground. There's its retreat, actually. But like I was saying, it will burrow into the ground and then come up underneath the Slayer, fly up into the air, turn around, and dive back down. It'll do this between 1 and 3 times. At the end of it, it'll land, and instead of going back into a portal, it'll do a forward buzzsaw kind of attack. Where you saw the Enrage, the Shadow Saw, or the Portal Saw, I gotta remember that. Where it did the Portal Saw, it does that just vertical instead of horizontal. There's another portal cut. This right here is actually, that is what I like to call dimensional bombardment. Be careful because the goop under the portals does cause umbral damage. It fades away really quickly once you're out of it, but we're already going back to the sunken place. I missed every attack there. I might just have to talk about most of its attacks in the wrap up. We're still on 4 portals. Now, one thing about this is that the Riftstalker relocation, once you get up to 5 portals, the Riftstalker will occasionally fake out coming out of the portal. It'll just come right out, and it'll come out and then really rapidly go back in. Portal dive again. It's trying to get back to the sunken place. We're finally up to 5 portals. This is the max it ever reaches, I think. Max I've ever seen it do. That's the fake out. Also, these shadow spheres, or the shadow balls that the portals launch, they seem to just go until they hit something. Dimensional bombardment, what it does, it hunkers down and creates a line of portals behind it. I think it starts at 5, but it eventually builds up to 6. It might just start at 6, I'm not sure. Portals will occasionally just fire off shadow bolts, just like the ones in the sunken place. They do eventually fade, but do not get close to them because, like I said, the stuff underneath them does cause umbral damage. It fades very quickly once you're away from the portals, but alright, we have the tailspin there. It does that. It can do that on its own or out of a portal. If it does it on its own, it looks away, or it looks towards the direction it's going to spin, and then spins for the tail spin. If it comes out of a portal to do it, it's a lot harder to tell. But what it's going to do is it's going to spin 180 degrees in one direction and then 180 degrees in the opposite direction. That there's a shadow dash. It hunkers back on its rear legs for a second, and then dashes fast, very quickly forward. Ooh, purple. And we win. see for that. Still, I think I did okay. Got a couple of golds. Alright, let's talk about the attacks while we load back into town. Alright, now the Enrage, like I said, it roars and gains the Enrage highlights, but doesn't really do the red aura pulse that you see normally. Dives into a portal in front of it. Then forms two portals, one in the air, one on the ground, in a straight line. Goes from the top to the bottom very quick, builds up a lot of speed. And then it will use this to go into the portal saw, which is its only Enrage specific attack. At the end of that build-up, it'll open a portal somewhere near a Slayer. It'll burst out at very high speed, so as soon as you see that portal, get away from it. It spins horizontally like a saw blade, and it'll repeat this a few times, usually about 3, all at very high speeds, and basically no downtime. However, this does give you an opening at the end, because what you can do is it gets dizzy, so just run up and start smacking it. Also, yes, Ramsgate is currently darkened because it's getting close to Halloween. Oh, there's actually graves over here. I'm going to stand over here and act mournful while I talk about the rest of this. Alright, next up, the next one's not really an attack, but I call it thinking with portals, because the Riftstalker uses portals, like I said, between normal battlefield and the sunken place, moves around very quickly. Portals are black and purple, and they can be used for a lot of its different attacks. Next, the Shadow Dive. We saw this a couple of times, where it scratches at the ground in front of it, like it's trying to burrow into it. After about a second, it goes face first into a portal that it opens on the ground. It creates a portal underneath the Slayer that it then leaps out of straight up and comes back down into another portal on the ground. It'll repeat this between 1 and 3 times. After the last time, it will not go back into a portal and will instead go into a horizontal or a vertical version of what I like to call the Shadow Spin Dash, which I'll talk about next. You want to be careful because this is the hitbox on the emerging Riftstalker is actually a little bit bigger than you'd think, so be careful with that. Next, the Shadow Spin Dash is kind of a variation of just the regular Shadow Dash, so I'll talk about both of them. The regular Shadow Dash it does while it's not enraged. It pauses, leans back very briefly on its rear legs, and then dashes forward at very high speeds. It covers a large part of the battlefield, and it seems to be one of the few attacks the Riftstalker has that actually will knock you down. The Shadow Spin Dash is rather similar, but instead of basically it does this while it's enraged rather than the regular Shadow Dash. The Shadow Spin Dash, it will do the same tail where it kind of hunkers back on its rear legs for a second, and then dashes forward at high speeds, but instead it'll do it while spinning horizontally like the Portal Saw attack. Next up, the Portal Slash. It just takes a short hop, then another one straight forward into an open portal in midair. A moment later, a portal opens near a Slayer, and it will come out and it'll slash with one front leg. It's pretty simple. Just avoid it. If you can can see it coming and see which leg it's going to lead with to slash, then go away from the leg. Dimensional Bombardment. This is one of its 2 main openers. It leans on its back legs for a moment, or actually it really just kind of hunkers all the way down. Creates a wall of portals behind it. It normally seems to be 6 portals. They face towards the Riftstalker, and occasionally they'll pulse and launch out a shadow ball at a target. They travel in a straight line until they hit something. The one thing is, be careful of the puddles of darkness underneath the portals, because they will constantly apply the Umbral status effect to you as long as you're standing in it. Once you get out, the status effect goes away very quickly, but you want to be careful because remember, Umbral status will do a ton of damage very quickly. Next up, the Shadow Stomp. This is just it's space clearing attack. We saw it a couple of times. It pauses briefly, takes a short hop into the air, and comes back down. When it lands, it sends out a purple dome of energy that just knocks back any Slayers in melee range. It doesn't do a lot of damage, but you want to be careful because it might be enough to kill you. Next up, its other main opener attack, the Multi-Portal Cut. It will open a portal and dive in, leap out of another nearby portal, and it'll do a Portal Slash, but instead of landing on the ground, it'll go into a portal that it opens on the ground where it lands, and do it again. It really only seems to do 1 repetition for that. Next up, the attack we saw a couple of times was the retreating tail spin. It will leap backwards, executing a 180-degree spin as it goes, slashing with its tail. It'll do this a couple times. It seems to be about a max of 3 before it finally stops. It's kind of difficult to get hit by this unless you're behind it or like right on top of it. Next up, the tail spin. Tail spin has 2 variations, just like the shadow dash. It can be used on its own or after coming out of a portal. If it does it on its own, it just looks to one direction and then spins in place 180 degrees. Be careful because the tail is longer than you think. It has a longer hitbox than you'd imagine. If it comes out of a portal, it'll start just like the portal flash, but it'll come out, do one tail spin 180 degrees, and then do one in the opposite direction 180 degrees. So it'll hit quite a bit. You want to be careful. And then finally, the biggest attack that the Riftstalker has, the sunken place. Now, this is the biggest danger that it's got because this is its biggest attack. It'll stop moving for a second, look around, and slowly back up into a portal on the ground. Use this, get some free damage, because you can actually hit it while it's doing this. After it completely submerges, a portal will open up under you, or a blob of Umbral energy will open up under the Slayers, and take them to the sunken place, which is just a shadow version of a small part of the battlefield. If the rift is part of this, you can actually use the rift while you're on there, in the sunken place. And yes, I know this is actually meant to be a direct reference to the movie Get Out, which is very good, by the way. The Riftstalker creates a number of portals. It starts at 2 and eventually expands up to 5 as the hunt goes on and more damage is done. These will pulse at times, and they can release one of 3 things: a shadow ball, like you'd see in Dimensional Bombardment, a shadow copy of the Riftstalker, or the actual Riftstalker itself. The way to tell the difference is what I'm about to tell you. 1, if the portal only pulses a little bit in the center, you saw it a couple times, it's just a very small pulse in the center of the portal, it's going to be a shadow ball. If it pulses solidly a dark purple blue, this is going to be a shadowy copy of the Riftstalker. And if the whole portal pulses and holds pink for a second, it's going to be a bright pink. This is where the Riftstalker is going to emerge, but you want to be careful because it usually will accompany itself with a shadow copy from a different angle. Now, this attack will go after a few waves, and by waves, I mean that the Riftstalker will actually come out and attack, and then go into another portal for a second. It usually does this twice. The other way to stop it, is if you suffer a break. You can do this with a regular break by, say, severing the tail, or this is one time where the Riftstalker seems really vulnerable to booping. If you can hit it in the head, and pretty hard, well, decently hard, this will knock it out, and this will also temporarily disable most of its abilities, leaving it with just basically a non-portal version of the slash and tail spins. The Riftstalker is a rather interesting beast to hunt, and it also gives you a good chance to get a hold of some Umbral gear before you go and face the Shrowd. Just remember, though, it is still a behemoth. It is still quite dangerous. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. Oh, actually, before we go, one last note about the sunken place. Once you hit the 5 portals, it only ever happens at 5. Sometimes the Riftstalker will emerge very briefly. It will only attack you if you're very close to the portal when it does this. It will emerge very briefly, and then immediately draw back into the portal that it just came out of. So it can fake you out, but this only happens at the maximum number of 5 portals in the sunken place. Like I was saying, I hope you guys enjoyed this. It's been a while since I did a Bestiary video. I'm going to try and do the final 2 that I've got to do right now, which is the Shrowd and the Rezakiri. I still haven't beaten the Rezakiri. That monster is special. But if you did enjoy, please be sure to like or favorite the video. You can also leave a comment down below if you have anything you want to say. By the way, if you do hit the dislike button, please let me know why. I would like to know. I'm still trying to improve my content. That's just how I am. If you want to keep up with me and never miss any of my current series, then consider joining the squadron by subscribing to the channel. That does help me out, and I really do appreciate it. But as for that, squaddies, I have been D. We faced off against the newest member of the Maelstrom today, and the Riftstalker came out weaker than us. Until next time, folks, we mourn the fallen, but good night, and good gaming.